Hey, how are you? I wanted to chat a little bit. I've been wanting to make this video for a couple of days now. It's been rattling around in my head. So, I'd like to talk about how I found a higher power in my life. God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. The short story is, I spent a lot of my life in 12-step rooms. And if you have ever been in a 12-step group, then you know that you need to find a higher power in order for the 12 steps to work. I'd been in 12-step rooms. I pretty much grew up in them. Lots of them, all different ones. But there came a time, I would probably say in 2012, that I was at my wit's end. I'd had some success. I'd had actually many years of success, and then relapsed in several areas, and I had no clue what to do. I'd lost many of the things that people lose in their lives: family, friends, jobs, and I really didn't know what to do. So I needed to find a higher power. I'd grown up Catholic, and it didn't work for me, personally. What didn't resonate was the fact that there was a God who was going to punish me, a God who I had so much shame and guilt. The idea of being punished without being given clear directions and then support to accomplish that felt foreign to me. I was filled with shame, filled with guilt. I felt unloved, abandoned, and unlovable. I had attempted to kill myself several times, obviously unsuccessfully. So I found myself with a very loving sponsor who basically is someone who assists you in the program, someone who you, in different programs, check in with on some type of regular basis. And we'd come to a point where I said, if there is a God, I hate God. I want to have nothing to do with God. I'd been atheist, I'd been agnostic, I'd been a believer, and everything I believed, I said, well, why would God make the world like this? I mean, if there's a God, why is the world the way it is? But I had to find something, and I was desperate. So the idea came to me is that you could make God whatever it was that you wanted, but it had to be something that you felt good about. So I tried to find something that I felt good about. In some of the literature, people make God all sorts of things. A chair, because it's a higher power than you, it's standing up and it doesn't need your help to do it. They make it the strength of other people. They make it all sorts of things. A chair didn't really inspire me to feel really great about myself. What I wanted to feel was love. So I went through my data banks and tried to come up with something I felt good about. It was a pretty low point in my life, and there really weren't very many supportive people for me outside of those 12-step rooms. With good reason. I'd hurt most of them. So I came up with Santa Claus. Santa Claus made me feel really good, and I had really good memories of Santa Claus. So that was what I went with. And I did everything I knew to turn my will over, to ask for help. Every night, I got on my knees and prayed and cried. I wrote letters to Santa because it felt like, to me, the idea of Santa that I had from childhood was a very warm, loving, caring, supportive idea. I didn't have those feelings about any idea of God that I had. So I prayed to Santa Claus, and I wrote letters to Santa Claus, and every once in a while I'd get really mad, and I would scream at Santa Claus, because I knew that Santa Claus was a jolly old man, and he was not going to be mad at me, because what I really had was a childlike heart. I had no clue how to get by in this world. I felt like everyone else had been given a manual for life, and I didn't know it, because I was walking around with this wounded heart, and most people I ran into were acting like, hey, it's great, it's a wonderful day. And I wanted to punch you all, because you knew something I did not. So what happened was I started working with my sponsor in this program, who I'm very grateful to this day. Um, and what happened was every day we check in, and he'd be like, all right, so what's going on? Well, I talked to Santa about this. Here's some writing that I did. Here's what I'm working on. And what it was, he was basically, for me, like a loving witness. My sponsor was a Catholic, and he was an observant Catholic, and he was very enthusiastic and he was a participant in his religion. And he just had this glow. I knew that whatever it was that he had, I wanted. And he was willing to set aside what he thought of my belief in Santa Claus to reach out his hand and help me while I go through this. So what started to happen was I started asking Santa Claus to send me signs because I wanted life to be good. So then what I started doing was, I started reading a book at the same time. I started reading Conversations with God by Neale Donald Walsch. And this was a book that affected me in a way that no other book had affected me, because this was someone else sharing their experience, and they didn't tell me what was right. It was a conversation. And the idea of anyone having a conversation with God, I was like, well, how can you talk to God? Nobody talks to God. God doesn't talk. God is silent. That's why the world is the way it is. But what was different about this book was that the book said to look to your experience. I would read what was in the book and then look at what showed up in my life. And things really started to change for me then. I was talking to Santa Claus and reading this book, and I had a belief that there was actually an entity, even if it was in my imagination. I had created this Santa Claus idea because I wanted someone to love me, because I didn't even like myself, let alone love myself. And as I read this book, it started to affect how I looked at the day. Instead of looking at all the things that were wrong in the world, I started looking for ways that I was being supported, ways that Santa Claus was talking to me. I would get into the car and a song would be on, and it would be exactly what I was thinking about, and it would be a song of support. It would be a song about how beautiful this girl was. And you know what I decided to do? I decided that God sent me that song. I would walk outside and my neighbor would say hello to me. Guess what? God told that person to say hello to me. I would go to work and people would say, hey, I really like your outfit, or even just hello, or a smile. You know why they did that? God made them do it. God was sending all of those people to me, vis-a-vis Santa Claus. There were times, obviously, when I would run into a grumpy person, and I had heard something which I did not like very much at all, which was anything that bothers you about someone else is something in yourself that you refuse to acknowledge. Whew! I'm going to need a drink for that one. Hold on. All the stuff that bothers you about other people is really your problem. I don't think so. There's a lot of assholes in the world. Does that mean I'm an asshole? I started to think about it. I'd done some pretty big asshole stuff. So when I ran into those people, I decided God was sending them to me just to show me, hey, look, there's another part of you. And guess what? You could smile at them and you could make their day instead, because they're not having such a great one. So this happened. It didn't happen overnight. It took a lot of retraining how I thought about things. But what I noticed was that life started getting better and better the more I looked for the good. I would be having a perfectly awful day. And I would say to Santa Claus, I really need somebody right now. I really need you to send me somebody. And then I would sit on the couch. Not a whole lot happened. So then I had the thought, why don't you go outside where you could actually interact with something? So I'd go outside, I would run into someone, they would smile, they would say hello. That was all I needed. I didn't need $20,000 to drop out of the sky. I was just desperate enough for a connection. So life started to get better. I actually ended up joining another 12-step group, and I needed a sponsor in this group, and there was a woman who was speaking one time, and she said, you know, I just want to have love around X, what the topic was for the group. And I'd never heard anybody say that they wanted to have love around it. And that was exactly what I wanted, because what I had heard was, I haven't done this for X number of days. I haven't done this for this amount of time. And how do I say this? I have great respect for 12-step groups. I don't currently belong to any anymore. I just don't need them anymore. But there were people who were not engaging in those addictions, who were not happy people. Some of them were brilliantly happy people, and others were not. So it wasn't just abstaining, which was the issue. It wasn't just not engaging in those activities. But this woman said she wanted to have love around it, and I was like, that's what I want. I don't want to fight something all the time. I don't want to be vigilant every single moment of my day. I want to have love around it. I asked her to be my sponsor. One of the second best things I ever did after the first person I asked to be my sponsor. We had a lot in common, and we started working through some of the literature on a weekly basis. The one phrase that always stuck out to me from what's called the Big Book, the Alcoholics Anonymous Big Book, is what you focus on increases. And I jumped on that. I wanted that so badly. So I focused on every single good thing that I could find. I would talk about it. I would tell people about it. Like, you're never going to believe this. I hit 7 red lights on the way to work. That's a good thing. It doesn't have to be huge. It has to be whatever's in your life. She actually turned me on to, we started talking, and she said, this might sound a little weird to you, but have you ever heard of Abraham Hicks? I said, no, never heard of Abraham Hicks. She said, that's one of the things that I've started to be including in my work with my sponsees. She said, would you take a look at it and see if you'd be willing to do it? And I said, okay, I'll take a look. We'd actually talked about conversations with God. We talked about a lot of things, and it was starting to form more of a friendship as time went on. So I did find out about Abraham Hicks, which totally blew my mind. If you don't know who Abraham Hicks is, Abraham is a spirit which is channeled by Esther Hicks. If you want to go take a look, feel free. But how do I finish this? I kept telling myself that life was getting better, and it was. To sum it up, all of the impulses that I had to belong to all of those 12-step groups were removed. They were replaced with an unabiding faith and love in Santa Claus, in a universe which totally supports me and shows me every single day in all the people that I meet. I realize that I'm unusual in this, but it doesn't mean I'm going to stop talking about it. So I think we will end there for now, because I have a lot more I want to say. But if I can believe in Santa Claus and be one of the happiest girls on the planet, I totally think that you can look for some positive entity, positive person, whomever, that you could start forming a relationship with, to look for someone who could love you if you don't feel that you could love yourself. Because I didn't think that I could. I never thought that I would. I didn't think that I'd be alive today. And now I would not miss a day on this planet. So I love you, and I hope you're having a beautiful day. Namaste.